Hey,
All
Dr.
right, all right,
Jazz.
all right. Hello, good morning, and welcome to another live episode of the Black Mind Garden, where we are remapping minds so you can create a life you design. And I'm very, very, very excited. Let me tell y'all, this has been a duo that has been a long time coming. Okay.
Yes,
It's
ma'am.
a long time coming. And so I am so excited, so excited to have Dr. Kimmy of the Dr. Coach School on my podcast today. And this is something, because we're actually doing something a little different. I'm not going to spoil it too much for you, but we're doing a little something different today. So I want to start by saying that Dr. Kimmy and I have known each other for, it's been several years,
Several
several
years.
years, several years. And we have we've been friends, we've been mentor, coach, mentor. We've been support systems, we've been a lot of things for each other. And I have she's seen me transition from one program, from one iteration to the next, and I've seen her transition from one iteration to the next. And so it is very fitting that we would be having this conversation today about what coaching is and what it isn't. And I just, first of all, want to welcome you, Dr. Kimmy. Thank you for being on. And it's just such a pleasure.
Oh, thank you for having me. I am so excited. I hope the people are ready, though. It's gonna get spicy. It's gonna get spicy. Okay. So I'm so excited to be here, though. Thank you for just the years, like you said, of friendship and camaraderie. And you have helped me through some really difficult times in my business and in my life. And I'm just happy to, do life with you, with wonderful Black women doctors such as yourself. So thank you so much for having me.
Yes, Queen. So I always like to start by having people know who you are. And I mean, the people who follow you know who you are, but on my platform, I want to make sure that my listeners of the podcast, they know who Dr. Kimmy is. So tell us.
Yes. Okay. So Dr. Kimmy is a child of God, a wife and a mom of two beautiful children. Israel is 13 and Sela is 7. And I'm
Mhm.
also a homeschool mom. So I had to warn my son before he came in, like, I'm recording. Don't knock on the door. I'm a pediatric hospitalist by profession, and I am retired. And I run my own coaching company called the Dr. Coach School, where I train women doctors, particularly women doctors of color, and I help them to market their coaching offers, to sell their coaching offers like a doctor, using the same principles we use in clinical medicine, and to get their clients incredible results through their own intellectual property. Let's see, I have been full time in my business for about a year and a half, and I have just I'm honored. It's a roller coaster ride. It's the best and the worst of times. It's all the things. So I'm sure we're going to get into some of that as well. Um, Running a business is so different from anything I've ever done before, but I feel so grateful, just so blessed to be where I am today and to work with some of the best clients ever. So I love my life. I love what I do.
Well, it's lovely to see what you're doing. I mean, of course, you know that we share some people, and so like they rave about you, and I appreciate that you're teaching Black women physician doctors who are starting their businesses to sell,
Hmm.
because people think that S is a dirty word, and it is what we do
All
all
day,
day
every day.
and every day.
We're the
Yeah,
best salespeople in the game. If we actually would own that, we
yeah,
are the best. Physicians are the best salespeople in the game. And so how can we just take that and pivot it to our own businesses? Yeah.
yeah. Because when you think about it, if you're a clinical doctor, if you're like still in clinical medicine and you're seeing, you know, 15, 20 patients a day, and you're convincing them to take take their care plan, be accountable for their health, take particular medicine, go see particular specialists. What are you doing 20 times a day?
You're selling.
So there you go. I love it. I love it. I love
Period.
it.
Period.
Yes. So, but we're here to talk a little bit about coaching because, and the reason this came up, I have to give some backstory, right? So the reason this came up is because, you and I were having a conversation. We were just connecting like we connect, and we were having this conversation about coaching and about, you know, being a trained coach versus not being a trained coach, and what trained coaching is and what coaching is it. And I think it's useful because we started to get into the nitty-gritty, and then we decided, wait a second, I think this is a whole podcast. So let's start with what it is. And I'm gonna bring it from my perspective, and
Mhm.
then of course, I want to hear, of course, I am going to hear your add-ons. One of the things I will say is that, um, when I first started coaching, this was like back in 2007 is when I first started coaching. I had some coach classes, but I had decided I wasn't going to formally train as a coach because as a physician, I felt like I had the skills. And as I looked into entities like the ICF and the IAC, which the IAC, for those who don't know, is the International Association for Coaching. So there are multiple, ICF is International Coach Federation, IAC, and then there's multiple others, right? There's the one that I'm accredited through now, which we'll get to, which is the ABNLP. But the initially I thought, you know what? I don't need to be certified. Like, I'm a physician. That's what I do all day, every day, right? And I know that we have shared some of that thought pattern. And over the years, as I coached my clients who were on the table, as I would stick the needles in and do acupuncture with them, I was like getting results. And then when I finally did decide to do a coach training, I realized there was a difference. So for me, what I realized is that, coaching is a partnership between two people. And I think that what gets misrepresented is that, a coach tells a person what to do, or a coach is an advisor, but that is not coaching. And a lot of programs that are calling themselves coaching programs are actually mentorships. Now, to truth be told, there is a lot of intersection between coaching and mentorship and advising and that sort of thing. But I think it's useful to know what is coaching so that people don't get confused. What do you
Yeah.
say to?
So I have, and I love this conversation because I love that we have similar but also maybe differing opinions. And I think that that's
Mhm,
the beautiful part of our relationship and even just doing this podcast.
mhm,
Um so if you look up the original definition of the word coach, it comes from the exact same root word as vehicle, coach. So the coach
mhm,
section on the back of an airplane, right? Or the coach
mhm,
of a on the back of a horse and buggy. So the word coach, if you look at the etymology, it is facilitating movement. There should be some movement. That's the whole, like, even in like, if you look at Spanish from Spain, the way they say car is coche, right? It's the same
mhm,
root word.
mhm,
So that's just like the heart of it. On the
mhm,
foundational level,
mhm, mhm,
coaches help facilitate movement. It's like, that's whenever I'm thinking about coaching and what is
mhm,
coaching, like, that's where
mhm.
I first go. So
Yes.
coaches help facilitate movement. I 100% agree with you that coaching is a partnership. And I think that to some extent, to a large extent, and I'm going to say how it's different, to a large extent, what we do in medicine there is some overlap between what
Absolutely.
we do if we are doing it correctly, right? Like if we are not being the paternalistic jerks that sometimes we can be as physicians.
Yes.
And when I say we, it's the royal we.
Yeah.
But like
The culture.
yeah, the culture of medicine is
Mhm.
very paternalistic. But
Absolutely.
I think many of us remember or can recall the courses that we took um having dialogue with patients, on getting buy-in from patients. Like those I think in that sense it overlaps. I think the difference though is that in medicine, the entire premise of it is that there is someone who is sick and they're coming to us to be well.
Mhm.
And there is a dynamic of treatment.
Mhm.
Whereas in coaching, the basic premise is that this should be the basic premise. And you want to really evaluate, like when you're
Mhm.
seeing a coaching program, is this the premise? The
Mhm.
basic premise is that there is someone who is whole and well and complete. They are not a victim. They are
Mhm.
not, they don't need treatment, right?
Mhm.
They are 100% capable of executing and getting results in their life. And they would like some tools and some strategies to help them along that journey, right? So we're
Yeah.
helping again to facilitate movement. That's how I think coaching does differ from
Yeah.
things like therapy, right? So there's always that question with physicians, like, how does coaching differ from therapy? That is the biggest difference that I see. So just kind of broad, I think there's a lot of overlap, but there are some distinct differences that I think if we as physicians do not have these kind of conversations, we can bring out the way we treat patients in the medical setting into our coaching relationship and set up codependent. We'll get there, but
Yeah.
it can go spiral downhill really fast. So
Yeah.
that's just kind of my thoughts on coaching.
Absolutely. I actually like co-sign everything that you said. And one of the things that I think that the came like sort of came up for me as you were talking is that the dynamic between doctor and patient is one of authority and one of agenda, right? Because when a
Yes.
patient comes to you and they're sick and we know the diagnosis. Now, again, this is not always the most effective way to manage patients because what we can see is our bias can get in the way when we have our agenda, and it can obscure our listening. And we're going to get to that too, because this is where one of the values of being trained that I discovered later comes in. But I think that there's that patient comes to us, we have to diagnose, and then we have an agenda to get them well. And so we have like our protocols and our processes that we've learned from over the years, and we want to um, enforce that agenda. This is where we can get into some slippery slope in the dynamic between physician and coach. Because oftentimes, and you can attest to this, when a person comes to you as a client, you can see 5-10 years ahead when they bring you their idea, when they bring you, when they say what they want their life to be like. You can already see that it's possible. You can already see like the amazing life that they can have. But what sometimes coaches can do is can take that and then say, I know what you need to do. And that's where there can be a slippery slope, is when we say that as coaches without listening to what they actually want, and to as we go along the way, because coaching, not only is it a partnership, but it's a dance, and
Yes.
it's not a linear dance. So there's there's the biggest difference I see is this between being a physician and being a coach, is this dynamic of authority and agenda. And then when it comes to therapy, I think the other piece is there's and you said it like, we see people as whole, perfect, whole, and complete, with a mission in mind, and we are the vehicle facilitating them on that journey. And sometimes, and I'm not going to say I'm not going to generalize this about therapy, because I know a lot of therapists. I have a therapist, and I know this is not true of all therapists, but sometimes the mindset in therapy is of fixing. And so there's the background context of brokenness. And we have that in medicine too. Something's broken, we need to fix it. And so that is where we can get into those, what you, as you say, sort of codependent dynamics. We can get into the slippery slope, authoritative dynamic. I know what you need to do, and where coaching can turn into more mentorship and advisory than into coaching itself. And I
Yeah.
think that the best programs are ones that do integrate some of a little bit of all of them.
I agree. I love that you brought that at the end. The best programs are the ones that integrate. I want to make sure that we are not kind of poo-pooing mentorship. Mentorship is
Oh,
so important. Like, it is
absolutely.
so crucial, because sometimes people don't know.
Yes. 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 And that's why I brought that in. It's
Help
like,
me.
yes,
Help me, please.
it's not an
Um,
either or, you know?
yeah, it's not an either or, but I think something that I we do inside of DCS is I do actually teach my clients a process for sales, whereby on the sales call, the at towards the end, there's multiple steps, but towards the end you are laying out a treatment plan. But I think what was so great about what you said is that, but we're doing it by listening. Like, our plan is based on not some strict rigid protocol. We are listening to what the client desires, the path that they want to take, and we are integrating that into what we sort of prescribe as the treatment plan. And I think that that is the difference. Whereas in medicine, it's like, these are my symptoms, I just want to get better, fix
Mhm.
me, right? And so, and the patient doesn't often, this is changing with artificial intelligence and the internet and all of that, but the patient doesn't always have um the same background necessarily to be able to advocate, like, this is the type of treatment I would want, or this is the path, this is what I want my healing to look like. So there is more of that authoritative stance of, I know what's best for you.
Mhm.
And we don't want to do that in coaching. We do not want
Correct.
to do that in coaching.
Correct. Correct. I love that. I love that. And then to your point around mentorship, I think that when we think about, and I'm going to bring a little bit of my conscious anti-racism training in, is when we think about the culture of oppression, one of the symptoms or the characteristics is only one right way, or either or is another one, right? We know there's those two to be a characteristic. And so I think it's useful to understand that in really great coaching programs, that you have this mixture of coaching and mentorship, and sometimes just plain old advice. And it comes from a background of expanded listening. And one of the things that, and this is I think something that's very, 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 very important to highlight, is that a lot of times we are taught to listen in medicine. Therapists absolutely are taught to listen there, but there's an expanded listening that happens in coaching that even goes beyond that. And especially when we talk about the work that I do in neurolinguistic programming and communication, it is all about listening beyond the 7% of that is words, right? So 7% of communication is words. That leaves an entire 93% of communication that is not. And being able to, as a coach, listen in a way that is beyond words, that really makes the difference. And being able to ask the kind of powerful questions that elicits what your client may or may not be telling you, or really to be able to elicit the true nature of their values and what's important to them, the true nature of what they're thinking but not saying, because our mind has all of these filters based on our memories, our past experiences, our language, all of these things. And to be able to ask the kinds of powerful questions that pull the information that's hidden, that they're not able to articulate, even that they didn't even realize. That is the value of being trained. That is the value of being trained. And I think I didn't myself realize that until I did my NLP training, until I did my master practitioner, until I became a trainer and started. And even after I started facilitating these certifications, these coach certifications, even after I started facilitating them, what I get every training deeper and deeper is how magic it is to be able to listen and even utilize the 7% in a way that makes a huge difference in reframing, in opening up and unlocking thought processes in people's brains.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious because you this is just for my own education. Well, I should say, let me give the background for your listeners, because I know they're just meeting you.
Yes.
So I am not actually formally trained in a coach, a standard or accredited, I guess you would say, coach training program.
Mm-hmm.
um I have built my coaching skills by coaching clients. That is how I've trained myself. I say that I'm self-certified. And I still think that there's so much to learn and so much that I do want to learn. I think my question to you is, what is it about the do you think it's the specific training that you have done in NLP? Because I don't think, as we know, all coach training programs are not
Yes.
created
Equal.
equally. So it seems like your particular certification really highlighted nonverbal communication, or
Yeah.
various ways of learning or assessing communication styles, but that is not always typical. Like, I've seen many coach certifications that I've researched or looked into that are really just a coach teaching you. It's
Yes.
not what you described. So
Yes.
I just want to hit on that, because it's not training per se in the broad sense, but what are we doing? Are we learning to listen to our clients? And I think one of the things that I really want to hit on, because I actually coached a client on this on Monday, is that this is an iterative process where you're always going to be learning, you're always going to be growing, you're always going to be failing, you're going to get it wrong. Like, you're going to have a client that you didn't listen to them, and you didn't take their perspective into account, and you were being really paternalistic. And I think the main thing I want people to walk away from this conversation with is having the awareness to notice when those things are happening without shame, and to say,
Yes.
okay, how can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? How can I move forward so that the next client, I don't treat them in that way?
Yes. So I'm so glad that you brought that up, because there's two things I want to say. Well, there's multiple things, but the two main things. Girl. So the first thing is, I want to make sure that I state that not being trained does not make you a bad coach. It does not invalidate your skill. I want to make sure that's clear, because
100%.
right, because there is a lot of in certain people like yourself, there's a lot of natural ability that comes with coaching. And there are certain people who have that natural ability to listen. So, I mean, I coached people from, you know, 2007 to 2013 without having a formal certification, and got amazing results. So it's not that you have to be trained. It's that the train and the spin, I'm going to get to the second part of what you said, is that the training that the training in and of itself unlocks a blind spot if you have the right training in your listening, in how to ask these powerful questions. And that takes me to the second part of what you said, is that yes, there is a difference in coach trainings, and it's important to know what to look for. Now, the particular certifications and trainings that I run are based in neurolinguistic programming and, hypnotic language, Ericksonian language, and trauma informed communication, deep work. And so I chose that path because a lot of what I do is deep belief and deep emotional release work and trauma work. Like that is what I do. That's what I do in the anti-racism world. I teach people how to communicate, right? Psychological safety, that's my jam, right? And bringing that to a coaching space creates, like a different level of safety and a different level of skill. And so some of the like traditional coach trainings, they may teach you powerful questions or they may teach you a framework. And I do have a question about that we're going to get to frameworks in a second. They do
That's my favorite topic.
all right. They do teach you frameworks, but they don't always teach you skill, the foundational skill. And so that is what distinguishes the type of training, the NLP coach training that I do from a lot of the traditional coach trainings. And if you're looking for a coach training, you want to look at what are the skills that they're teaching you beyond just ask this question, give this answer, here's this framework, um, develop a framework and take them through the framework. Yes, that is valid. I think frameworks, you have to have frameworks because people want that. People want to know you have a process. Like that's important.
That is important.
Yes. And you want to have the skill and flexibility underneath the framework to be able to dance with your client.
Yes.
So that you really are leaning into their agenda and what's important to them and their values so that they can get the highest results.
Yeah. I think that is, I'm so glad we're talking about frameworks. I could talk about frameworks all day.
I know,
I
you're the
think
framework.
it's so undervalued or underappreciated that it provides psychological safety. Like we can try all we want to say, well, no, we don't need a framework. People, we as humans, we crave frameworks. We just want to know what is the road. Like if I'm going to New Jersey, it's like, well, you have to leave Florida first and then you're going to drive through Georgia. Like that helps me feel safe to get behind the wheel of the car, right? I think though, and something that we do in DCS, I think so incredibly well is that undergirding. So this is how I teach my clients, like your framework is sort of like the bridge that between where your clients are and where they want to be. But you have to have some anchors, like what's holding up the bridge. Like you have to be able to, like you said, I like the way you said, dance with your clients and you're all along, you're showing them their brain, you're helping raise their awareness, you're asking powerful questions. Like there are skills that underpin the framework. It's not just, I'm going to teach you what to do. Here you go. Here's the path. All right, have fun. Like, no, like, I mean, human beings are complex and we fall off track and we have fears and we get scared of success and like all of the human emotions. Like what are the skills that you have to be able to help someone when they are, maybe they have veered off the framework and maybe that is the best thing for them. So I actually had a client run one of our coaching calls last week. She was on here. I don't know if she's still on here, Dr. Kim, but she ran one of our coaching calls. And I was watching the replay and I was so excited because one of the things she talked about was how she utilized my sales call framework and she did it so many times and she's had success. She's been able to sign, 5-figure clients. She's had success, but she noticed that there was one part of it that just didn't quite feel right for her. And she decided to change the call in a very specific way that worked for her and her clients and her business. And
Mhm.
I was just like, beyond, I like sent her a message. I was like, this was the like, thank you so much
Mhm.
for illustrating that, you know, how to take a process and make it work for you. And I think one of the things that I highlighted to my clients later was the self trust that you have to follow
Yes.
someone's process, and then the self trust that you have to deviate. Both of
Yes.
those require deep and abiding self trust that I wish, like, that is the underpinning of I think what we as coaches want to help our clients develop is that deep and abiding self-trust. And she had the self-trust to follow my process over and over and over again, and then she had the self-trust to break away and say, this is the process that works for me. And so I love that you said that. That just that made me so excited. Like, what are the skills? How are we helping our clients move through the process and make it their own in a way that is right for them is, I think, so important.
Yes. That's amazing. And so, listen, I think this is a great place to take a little break,
Oh, we're
little
doing a break. All
tiny,
right, cool.
not a big break, just a tiny break, because as you know, there's gonna be a little cliffhanger. So what I want to ask in this little short break is, for the people who are joining us live today, if there are any questions, any comments, this will allow us to sort of like address some things in our part two of this conversation. Any questions that are coming up? Any comments? Any
Anything that we
frequently?
said that y'all are like, wait, what?
Right,
Run that
exactly.
back, or
Anything to add about your style of coaching? And if not, we can fill it in with some frequently asked questions.
yeah, that sounds great as well. Do you see? I think you see different. You might see questions that I don't see, and vice versa. So I'll let you know if anything pops up
I'm
on
not
my
seeing
end.
anything popping up on my
Me
end
neither, not
either.
yet.
Okay. Well, this is fine, because this is a great little pause break. And so I'm sure there'll be questions that come up. However, as we move on to part two of this conversation, um, we were just talking about this concept of frameworks and flexibility. We were just talking about this concept of frameworks of flex and flexibility. And I actually love that. I love what you said about having the self trust. And I'm like going to go into like the values of frameworks and flexibility, right? But having the self trust, there's a couple of things that you said. First, I'm going to backtrack. You said frameworks bring psychological safety. Oh my gosh. When you said that, I was like, because people want a roadmap. People want to know where they're going. People need that structure to feel safe. And so I love that you said frameworks bring psychological safety. And then you took it to the frameworks and the flexibility and having the trust, to the self trust to follow someone's framework, but then having the self trust, and I'm going to add the flexibility to be able to deviate when it's called for. And so for me, that brings this conversation of behavioral flexibility. And one of the things that I see in coaching programs that do not contain this is this rigidity of follow this framework exactly. If you don't follow this framework, then you won't have success. If you're having problems, check your mindset. They're like, check your mindset. It's always check your mindset. Now, obviously, like I'm all about that mindset. I'm all about thought creating world, word creating world. And the inflexibility of a framework that then goes and blames the ineffectiveness of a client on just the mindset. That's called gaslighting, by the way, people. We don't want to gaslight our clients. And so the beauty in what you said around the self-trust to deviate is this is being able to be flexible. And that's one of the things that learning. So we talked about the communication aspect of NLP and what that brings, but basically the foundation of that is learning to be flexible in our behavior. It expands your behavioral flexibility such that when you have a framework, that's the foundation. That I love how you named it. That's the bridge. But then knowing when, by your listening and just even by your own intuition, by connecting with your body. Now that's a thing that doesn't get talked about a lot as a coach, is connecting with your intuition. So there's your framework, there's your listening, and then there's your intuition. Because oftentimes as coaches, we could be in our head about things because we're in our head with our own thoughts and our own beliefs and our own. And as a coach, you have to, if you got to tap those beliefs. You got to get your mind right as a coach, because perception is projection. And if you perceive something is wrong, you will project that onto your clients, right? When you perceive your clients will always be successful, then you will relax and have the flexibility to listen and move with them inside of this framework. And
Mm-hmm.
that is the marriage of framework and flexibility.
So good. No, I 100% agree with you. I think it's high time that we talk about the whole concept of gaslighting gaslighting our clients because
I have been gaslit,
um
and I've been gaslit in many coaching programs. Oh,
yeah.
this aspect of sell. This is how I learned to sell, by the way, is by taking a traditional sales, because you and I, we both love sales, right? So by taking a traditional sales training and realizing that it wasn't working for me and for the types of clients that I take on and for the types of students that I take into my training, realizing that, and this was, and then being able to say, you know what, let me pull my training in NLP and take part of that and integrate in what I know and create my own sales process for the
Mhm.
specific people that I serve,
Mhm.
right? But I was gaslit a lot. Well, it's just your mindset. It's just your mindset. Just check your mindset. You're not doing it right. You're not doing it right. If you follow, are you following this exact process? Yes. Well, then you just check your mindset. It's just you don't believe. And I'm like, what?
Yeah. So here's the thing. It gets so this is we could talk about this all day
Slippery,
too.
right? Right.
So
Slippery
it's
slope,
yeah,
right?
yeah, because sometimes and to that point, eh, sometimes it is our mindset. Like so as the
Yes.
client, like sometimes
Yes.
it is, right?
Sometimes it
And
is.
but I think so I actually want I have a question for you. How
Tell
do
me.
you when you are working with a client, what is the line for you between let me try to figure out how I want to say this. The words are not forming readily. But so you said like let's say a client is following your framework and for whatever reason they aren't getting results, and you said that we should really be teaching also how to drop into our bodies and listen to our intuition, etc. How for you, how what is the line between into it's the client's intuition and it's their inner knowing and what's best for them versus they are self-sabotaging and they are like I would love for you to talk about that. I have
Yeah.
thoughts about it, but I want to hear your thoughts about that.
So for me, there is no assumptions. No, I assume absolutely nothing. I ask questions. So, how I
Yes.
know whether it's process or belief is by asking questions. This is my training. It is never to assume that it's mindset. It is to ask, okay, what happened? Okay, what is going through? Like for us, we talk about in my NLP trainings when you're working with a client and they're not doing the process or the results are not showing up. You want to get into the mind of what's happening in their head. So I said, okay, well, is it that um, what is it that's going on in your head as you're doing this process? And then they'll tell me. And sometimes the limiting belief will come up in that, and it's like, oh, okay, so this is a great limiting belief. Let's work on that. Let's dig into that, right? How do we release that? Or sometimes it's the process. Sometimes it is the process. It's like, oh, okay, let's tweak how you this. Oh, this is not working for you. Maybe it's the type of clients. Maybe how could we tweak this process so that it would work for your clients? So
Mhm.
it's all about asking questions. I have to have the flexibility as a coach to know when my process is not working for my client, and to be willing and able to explore and brainstorm with my client how to tweak the process accordingly.
Yeah.
And or if I ask the right questions, this is like really what would happen if, or how do you know that they're thinking this? Like when you start to listen for what are the assumptions your client is making about the people that they're speaking to. When you can catch those assumptions that they're making, this is part of the training, like listening for the assumptions and language of other people. Then you can actually challenge their assumptions, and that will bring out the beliefs. So that's how I know. It's simply by digging into what is happening in the brain to know whether it's
Mhm.
process, or whether it's process, outward process, or inward thinking.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I my thoughts on that are, in order to do that work, on the coach's part, has to be a very, very high level of internal safety. This is something we talk about a lot in DCS, internal safety, to to because again, and especially with physicians, right? Physician coaches in particular, if you start veering back to, but oh, it's not working for them, I need to fix it. I need to figure out what's going on and fix it. And it must be something that I'm doing. And if you hang your entire worth as a coach on whether or not your client is getting results, then that is where you slip into codependency. That is where you slip into that, like, that power dynamic of authoritarian to, client, let me tell you what to do, right? But it's all coming from a place of that I'm doing it so that I can feel better about
Mhm.
myself. So, one of the things, before you can even start coaching clients, you have to do internal work within
Yes.
yourself.
Yes.
Internal work to build internal safety and sufficiency within yourself, that
Yeah.
you don't need anything from your clients. I don't need anything from these
Yes.
individuals that I'm working with. And then that is what underpins that flexibility, to be able to just, without any assumptions, ask questions. But you're not able to do that when you don't have that you don't start out
Yeah.
with internal work within yourself. And I think that's one of the things, if you're looking for a training program to help you build your skills as a coach, you have to look for one that also helps you as a coach with things like internal
Yes.
safety, with you being able to coach yourself, with you being able to see your own brain. It's going to be hard to show someone else their own limiting beliefs and show them their brain, when you aren't able to see yours. So I think that
That's
is
right.
something to also really key in, when you're looking for a coach training program.
I love that you said that. I love that you said that because, you know, oftentimes when coaches are doing work, they're training in the business and marketing arena, and sometimes they forget to train their own beliefs continuously. And I 1,000% agree. This is one of the reasons I love the training of NLP, is because you, in order to master the skills, you must also practice the skills, which means your partner must also practice the skills, and you must also be a client. So a lot of times people come into the training one person, and they go out another person, because they're releasing all of these subconscious beliefs, right? But one of the things that you said that was just, I think, brilliant, is this place of, when when something's not working, hanging your entire existence on what am I doing wrong? It's so like the context is so decisive. It's not what am I doing wrong or what's wrong with my program. It's what is not working and why is it not working? And that's where you can detach your emotions from the outcome and really be curious and investigate. And it is like it's a balance sometimes. And one of the ways, coming back to feeling it in your body, one of the ways that you can to feel whether you're slipping into the codependency is, how are you feeling in your body? Are you feel where does confidence sit in your body? Where does self-assuredness sit in your body? Where does knowing sit in your body? Like that is something that you want to practice when you're not in a coaching situation. Like, go to a time where you felt confident, where you felt assured, where you felt you were at your best, and see what you saw and hear what you heard and feel the feelings that you felt, and notice where that is in your body, and bring that to the coaching space. And then when that's not showing up, like, let's take it to the other side. Go to a time where you felt like insecure, where you felt like you needed something. Go to a time where you felt, like something was wrong. Hear what you heard, see what you saw, feel the feelings that you felt. Where does that sit in your body? How does that feel? Right? So clock that. Dr. Una, I got to give a shout out to Dr. Una.
Hey, too bad we can't add like a third person onto it.
Well, so I'm going to give a preview. Dr. Una and I are going to be having a conversation in 2 weeks. So yay!
I would definitely tune into that for
Yes.
sure.
So see what you saw, hear what you heard, feel the feelings that you're feeling. Clock where insecurity, stress, all of those things are happening in your body. Clock that feeling. Go back. Step out of that, right? Step out of that emotion and that feeling, that experience. Step into confident, assured, knowing. Step into that. Feel how that feels. Clock that. And then when you're in your coaching space, and this is what we teach anchoring inside of the coach program. We teach this anchoring, like anchor that confidence, anchor that self-assuredness. Do whatever you need to do to anchor it. Anchor it to a chair, anchor it on your body, anchor it. Go into the coaching space that way. And when you feel yourself slip out of that in your body and start to slip into this other space, that's when you know. You got to pull back, take a step back, go into third position, go into the observer space, what's happening here, then come back into your body and shift. That's where the flexibility happens. That is what we do in our programs. That's what we teach. So that's what I love about what you said.
Yeah. So I teach a very similar process inside of, so imagine doing all of that on a sales call. Like, some people are like, well, I thought a sales call was just a script. And I'm like, well, you can try that. That didn't work for me because what I found when I was just kind of given a script and taught how to run a sales call was that there were all of these things happening, and it's almost like the call or the conversation would run away from me. And later on I'd be like, wait, why did I say that? Why did she say that? What happened? What's going on? Right? And I didn't understand how to get a handle on it. And so one of the things I teach in the sales call prescription inside of DCS is how to do that work using different words, but a very similar process of observing what's going on, because there are unconscious conversations that are happening in every conversation. There are unconscious conversations, and I am not NLP trained, but that's why I lean toward, like, if I ever was coach certified, it would have to be with NLP, because I this is something I just developed on my own. I just noticed, I just saw myself that there was a conversation happening between what I call my inner cave woman and my potential client's inner cave woman. And they were doing a dance, and then there were words we were saying, but then there was this other conversation. I was like, I feel like that other conversation is the meat of it. Like, that other conversation is probably more so influencing the buying decision than any of the words I'm saying or the client saying. Like, how can I capture that and really understand what's happening in that? And so one of the things I teach my clients to do is to notice and observe the unconscious conversations in the sales dynamic, to be able to, even in while you're using words, they're using words, how do you step outside and see what's happening when you're able to? And it's we also I think we also should be doing this in our coaching
Yeah,
relationships as well, not just on a sales call.
absolutely.
I actually think in every conversation is a sales conversation. You're either
Yeah.
selling or you're being sold to, period. So in every conversation, you can get to the point where you're noticing these like unconscious dynamics.
Mhm.
Um, but I think it's so important to do that. And again, you have to have one of the things we talk about in DCS is the safety formula that I developed. You have to have sufficiency and
Mhm.
you have to have certainty like within yourself
That's
to be
right.
able to just neutrally
That's right.
step outside and say, okay, what's happening here, and be able to observe from that neutral place. And so sometimes I have clients and they're like, I had this sales call and they're like beating themselves up, and I'm like, if you hired a consultant to hey Dr. Joyo, you got
Hallelujah.
like all the incredible folks dropping in. So glad to see you. If you hired a consultant to audit the sales call, they would not say the words that you're saying to yourself. Like
That's right.
you're like, oh, I'm horrible and nobody's ever going to want to work with me. No, like consultant would just say, hey, this is what worked. This
Mhm.
is what didn't work. Here's how you might want to change things going forward. So to be able to observe our work as coaches from a neutral place, it all has to start with that internal safety.
That's right.
I one of the things I teach inside of DCS, before I teach you how to market, we're not talking about Instagram until we talk about internal safety. We're
That's
not
right.
talking about your sales calls until you've learned how to build some sufficiency within
Yes.
yourself. So you have to do that
That's
work
right.
within yourself first before you go out and start interacting with others.
Absolutely. 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 Um, you know, one of the things that you were talking about, you're the selling or being sold to, and what came to mind in this, in all of what we've been talking about, and all of the self-sufficiency and all of the listening and all of the being in your body. By the way, y'all, this works in every area of your life. Watch how, watch how. So we one of the things that I always like to bring it back to, you're like, yes, this is about business, this is about being an impactful coach and making a difference. But one of the things that transforms you in every way is learning these principles. Watch how your communication changes with your kids. Watch how your communication changes with your spouse, your parents, your siblings, your colleagues. So, not just your clients. Like, these skills bleed out because, I like to say how you do anything is how you do everything. And so I just want to like pan up because I'm the chunk up girl. I'm the big picture girl, right? I'm gonna say yes. This is about this, and how does this impact your whole life?
Yeah. No, you're so right. My whole life has changed by just being, really leaning into my own sense of internal safety, like building safety within myself has impacted everything that I do.
Yes.
When I was working full time, it impacted the way I advocated for myself at
Mhm.
work, right? I had a boss in my last year, like right before I transitioned out, who he he didn't like something that I wanted to do, or I think I didn't want to. I was asked, I was voluntold to be put on a committee, and I didn't think it was the best use of my skills. And so I basically told him I'd rather not do this work. And the fact that he was even able to say that, there was a
Yeah.
lot of safety I had to have within myself to be able to say that. And then when he had thoughts about it and voiced those thoughts very strongly,
Mm.
um, my ability um to respond powerfully, but not from a place of I'm trying to like not use the word that I want to use because it can be a trigger word, but not from a place of like, oh, I'm down and out and this
Yeah.
person is trying to harm me. To just
Mhm.
to be able to say to myself, okay, he has, people above him that want desire certain deliverables, and
Mhm.
he is reacting to what I'm saying because of how that's going to impact him. And it's not really
Mhm.
about me. Like, whereas
Yeah.
before I would have just gone in like guns blazing, like, either guns blazing, or I would have just self-flagellated, beat
Mhm.
myself up and been like, oh, I'm such
Yeah.
a horrible person. And then I would have
Yeah.
capitulated and gone back and been on the committee and been miserable. So
Right.
it really does impact every area. I think about, with my children, this work. And I'm teaching my son how to start his own business. He's 13. I homeschool him. So I'm like, if someone had taught me how to sell when I was 13, like my whole life would be different. Just when I say how to sell, how to help someone believe something new, how to have these
Yes.
unconscious conversations, like all of that,
Mhm.
it's a life skill. It
It
is a
is.
life skill, 100%.
Absolutely. Well, woo, girlfriend, we have had the conversation. You know, we could talk about this all day. We can go
All
on
day.
and on and on and on. And so I want to just appreciate and acknowledge you and give you your flowers for all the work that you're doing with the Dr. Coach School, for just like the impact that you're making, for having made the transition. You know, people like you, people like myself, we are the examples of being able to pivot and to create careers that we love. And, shout out to Dr. Una who joined us, and Dr. Joyelle, because they are also representing similarly, like making those transitions, empowering other women, physicians, or, like in Dr. Una's case, all physicians, And so, like, really just thank you for who you are. And I just look forward to collaborations and future conversations, and continue to be your sister in transformation.
100%. Thank you, Dr. Maisha. Thank you for this platform to be able to have a conversation with you and to be able to go there. And,
Mhm.
I love that we have slightly different perspectives, but we are both on the journey
Mhm.
of empowering others to live the best versions of their own lives. And so, I
Mhm.
mean, there's just nothing better than coaching. I think it's the best profession. I know I
Yeah.
love medicine. It's medicine was the path that got me here, and I'm really,
Mhm.
really grateful for it. But I love the work that we're able to do as coaches. And I think that we are truly changing the world one client at a time,
Mhm.
one person at a time. So thank you for all the work that you do, and for just
Yeah.
also being an example to me. All those many years ago, when I saw you, I also saw that when I saw you and people like you, like Dr. Una, etc., I
Mhm.
saw that it was possible for me. So thank you for just like being who you
Yeah.
are in this space as well.
Yes. Well, so we know that for those who are here live, this is a live version of a podcast, and so I always like to ask my guests, how in the world can my people get with you, follow you, reach out to you? What are the links, the URLs, the socials? I'm going to have them in the show notes, but I want you to say them out loud.
Yes. So if you are listening to this podcast, then you like podcasts. So I want to invite you to also join me over on my podcast, the Dr. Coach School podcast. We release episodes every single Monday at 5 a.m. And I would love to talk to you about, we talk about all things coaching, selling, marketing, intellectual property, all of the things. So join us over there. And depending on when this goes live, I'm not sure. Well, I'll just drop my website because I'm not sure when this goes live, but I do have a
Mhm.
brand new training coming out on November 28th. And it's going to be my best training yet. I am teaching you to quit. Okay, quit your doctor job by becoming a doctor coach. And quit does not necessarily mean that you need to leave, but we need to quit hanging all of our hopes and dreams and our entire purpose and all of our potential profits on the medical industry. Okay, go
Mhm.
into business for yourself and learn how to sell a $5,000 to $20,000 offer using the principles that I talked about today. So if this goes live before that, you can go to the drcoachschool.com/quit, or you can just go to the Dr. Coach School. Even if it is before that, you'll find the links to everything. My Instagram, my podcast, you can get on my email list. All of the things are located at the drcoachschool.com.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And um, we will, well, we're batched out a little bit. And I'm glad that you said it live because we are streaming across all platforms right now. So people
Yes,
who
the
are live.
drcoachschool.com/quits. Join us. It is going to be epic. It's going to be epic.
Very, very, very good. And y'all always know where to find me if you are, wanting, if you're like, oh, this communication thing, trauma informed communication, this NLP thing, I want to learn more about that. Subscribe to the Black Mind Garden podcast. And you can always go to mindremappingacademy.com. That's mindremappingacademy.com to learn more about the coach certifications, the NLP training, if you are interested in hypnosis, if you're interested in trauma-informed work. And of course, if you're an organization and you're interested in having me come and talk a little bit about trauma-informed communication and psychological safety, that is also where you can reach out to me there as well. I always like to thank our audience because without the audience, there is no podcast. So thank you for listening. This was an amazing conversation. Please share it. Share it with another doctor, share it with a friend, colleague, because even though we talked a lot about coaching, this has life application. So share it with a friend, share it with a colleague, share it with your social media. And for those of you who are listening to the podcast, if you haven't subscribed, go subscribe right now to both, to the Dr. Coach School and to the Black Mind Garden. Do it now. But also, leave a review because we are causing transformation. This is a whole darned movement. And in order for us to move, people must know that when they come to this podcast, that we are causing transformation. And so please, please, please leave a review on your favorite podcast platform and share it with someone else. And so with that, I say thank you again. Y'all have a great rest of the day, an amazing rest of the week. And until then, stay empowered.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.